Bryan. Today I am reviewing Hartford Stage's production of Arthur Miller's All My Sons, directed by Melia Bensussen and running through May 5th at Hartford Stage at 50 Church Street in Hartford, Connecticut. If you are a fan of the show and want to help it soar to new heights, consider becoming a patron on my Patreon page, where you can, for as little as $1 a month, support this show and my classic cinema podcast, Yesterday's Matinee. Expenses add up quickly as a critic, and every little bit you can contribute is most appreciated. Thank you to my current patrons, especially my Neo and Hamilton tier members, and welcome to the new ones. I'll leave a link in the description. Every once in a while, I get into a role of reviewing shows I like and end up giving several positive reviews in a row. These last few shows I've reviewed, I've given at least mostly positive reviews. But then I get a fresh dose of reality by getting the chance to review a play like All My Sons by Arthur Miller. And suddenly I'm rethinking my critiques of previous works because Arthur Miller was such an amazing playwright. He has the ability to take large world issues, in this case World War II and war profiteering at the expense of human lives, and bringing them down to the most basic human level in a timeless way with rich, complex human beings who, even when we abhor their actions, still empathize with them because we know the game is rigged against them and there is a greater evil out there, and they are just as much a victim of their own situation as they are culpable for their sins. So when I rave about other plays or musicals, understand that yes, they are good, even great. But while I'm talking about playwrights and composers like Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams, Eugene O'Neill, August Wilson, and Stephen Sondheim and Leonard Bernstein, I'm talking about S-tier theater versus mostly A-tier. It's not that Stereophonic is bad in any way, it's fantastic, one of the best of the season, but All My Sons is one of the greatest American plays ever written, and deserves the reverence it gets in the sacred halls of theater history. And what's even better is that Bensussen and her Hartford Stage team have given us one of the best plays of the season, maybe challenged by another Arthur Miller classic, Longworth's production of A View from the Bridge. Set in 1946 in the aftermath of World War II, Joe Keller, played by Michael Gaston, along with his wife Kate, played by Marsha Mason, and son Chris, played by Ben Katz, are visited by Ann Deaver, played by Fiona Robertson, who had been engaged to Joe and Kate's other son, Larry, who has been missing in action as a pilot in the Pacific Theater for over 3 years. Kate refuses to believe her son is dead, taking faith in news articles of other presumed dead during the war being discovered alive and returning home. So when Chris and Anne profess their love and intend to get married, they are faced with quite a bit of resistance. Things grow more complicated when Anne's brother George, played by Reese Dos Santos, arrives claiming he has evidence that Joe, who was business partners with their father, set their father up to take the fall for shipping out faulty cylinders for airplane engines to the military, causing the death of at least 21 airmen. An investigation and trial had been held, and Joe was determined to not be at fault while Anne and George's dad went to prison. Michael Gaston and Marsha Mason are an incredible pair. Gaston has a delightful casual quality as Joe, at least until the conflict really gets going when he lets Joe's inner workings come out with direct fervor. At intermission, I was a bit unsure how I felt about Marsha Mason's performance. It felt like she was coming from a whole other galaxy in presenting Kate's mental gymnastics that she plays with herself every day and believing that Larry is still alive. But when things start to turn in Act 2 and things start to really hit the fan in Act 3, it became clear that Marsha's characterizations are exactly where they needed to be the entire time in order to get the character into the spiral she starts to descend into. It feels weird to say that I was impressed with the performance of such an acting veteran like Marsha Mason, but yeah, the way she has Kate hold on to her faith with such zealousness is brutally sad as she fights for her belief in Larry being alive. It's amazing. Most of the supporting cast is excellent as well. Godfrey L. Simmons Jr. is a delight as the cordial neighbor, Dr. Jim Bayliss, and his comedic timing with Yadira Correa, who plays his sharp-witted wife Sue, is perfect. The two of them are a highlight of the production, as well as the other neighbors, Frank and Lydia Lubey, played by Dan Whelton, and Caitlin Zaz. Even Malachi Glenofsky, who plays the young neighbor Bert, who plays private eye games with Joe, is a nice little delightful addition. The two weak spots in the play for me, though, are Ben Katz and Rhys Dos Santos as Chris and George. Katz's Chris is too stiff. I get that Chris is supposed to be anxious about having Anne over and marrying her, but his actions don't translate to nervousness or anxiety, but stiffness to an almost robotic sense of action. It's not until George shows up that Ben loosens up and starts to give some stronger actions. He and Michael Gaston both have a terrifying performance as they square off in Act 3. Rhys Dos Santos' performance as George could have been stronger as well. It felt more like he was playing angry with Joe versus actually being angry. Fiona Robertson as Anne comes off splendidly strong. Her scene revealing a letter from Larry in Act 3 is beautifully measured and heartbreaking, and her interaction with Gaston and Marsha Mason is fantastic. She does have one odd character choice where she keeps pressing her arm to her belly, which just made her look like she was sick in some way. But that's kind of a nitpick about her performance. I loved Ryu Rakkulchon's scenic design and the use of negative space, with the Keller house taking up most of upstage right and leaving this open sky upstage left. It gives the scene a detailed sense of depth. Bensussen makes full use of Hartford Stage's three-quarter thrust stage to bring the Keller backyard into the audience as well. If I had one nitpick about the design, it's the apple tree downstage. It has fallen over due to high winds before the play begins, and Chris cuts the tree free and takes it off stage. The problem is the tree is so small it seems improbable that he would have to drag it to the garbage. It's unintentionally comical watching this fit young man dragging a small tree. But aside from a couple acting issues and an odd choice involving a tree, Hartford Stage's production of All My Sons is superb and one of the best productions in the state of Connecticut this season. I can't emphasize enough how fantastic this play is. It's one of the greatest plays ever written. Melia Bensussen and Hartford Stage have produced one of the best productions of the year. But I'm only one man's opinion, so be sure to leave yours in the comments below. If you'd like to see All My Sons, I'll leave a link in the description where you can get tickets. Also in the description will be a link to my Patreon page. Be sure to visit it as well. You can also support my channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing, and click the notification bell to be alerted to future reviews. My next review will be the new Broadway revival of Cabaret. Thank you for watching, and I will see you at the theater.